So, folks, tonight I am going to do what was suggested to me by my good friend and author, Peter Coffin. Now, Peter Coffin is the author of this great pamphlet, Marx for Sale, great documentary. He's done many great, very important documentaries. He's a member of the Center for Political Innovation. He's done great film work for our organization. We love Peter Coffin in many, many ways. He's just a dynamic, amazing human being. And Peter Coffin suggested that I take a swing at Skippy the Bear. Do folks remember Skippy the Bear? It's been a long time since we've talked about Skippy the Bear. I nicknamed him Skippy the Bear. His internet moniker is Thought Slime. And he's a dumbass. There's really no other way to put it. He's a failed comedian. He tried to be a real comedian, and he wasn't funny. He did a YouTube channel that did movie reviews for a while. And then, around the time they were trying to mobilize people to oppose Donald Trump and protect American imperialism from the threat of Donald Trump, some guy who's, kind of a loose cannon, is not going fully on board with them. They were mobilizing the left and wokeism. He got the gig. He got the gig of suddenly being the king of internet socialism. Why? Because he's a dumbass. I don't know. He's not connected to any revolutionary organization. He's never done any genuine revolutionary activism. He is pro-imperialist to his core. He thinks socialism is an employee stock ownership program. And his fans are okay with that because he's pessimistic and he promotes degrowth, and he talks about self-mutilation and suicide and child abuse, and helps very depressed people fixate on their negative feelings. He's all around a very disgusting human being. And the logo for his channel is a bunch of sludge, a bunch of disgusting slime. And that's what he wants you to feel. You go to his channel and you hear him do his comedy routines that involve putting other people down, insulting other people's appearances, telling people that there is no hope. And you walk out of all of his so-called comedy or entertainment feeling like you are dirt, like you are lower than slime, like you're garbage, right? And that's a particularly dangerous and irresponsible message for someone like him to put out, especially because his videos are particularly aimed at transgender people, right? Transgender teenagers watch his channel, the very people that commit suicide at high rates, that struggle with self-esteem, but he has no regard for his audience. He's simply a selfish person who has really no sense of social responsibility. So he promotes this pessimistic, misanthropic suicide comedy, to his audience. And he does this, and he's paid handsomely for it. They've boosted him in the algorithms. And he mixes his depressing suicide comedy with synthetic left fake socialism. And I've always loathed the guy. And proof that this guy is clearly an agent of imperialism is the fact that of all the people to take aim at, right? He could criticize Alex Jones. He could criticize Richard Wolff. He could criticize anybody. He decided randomly to go after me. Because I'm an RT reporter, because I work at RT and he hates Russia. And so with his channel that's huge, he's made multiple videos trying to claim that I am a white supremacist, trying to claim that I am actually a neo-Nazi. He's used his big platform, and that has hurt my wife, who is an immigrant activist in New York City. That has hurt me. And we know his intent is he's hoping to get me killed, right? He hopes that the right person, one of these crazed Antifa nuts, will see it and shoot me. And he's trying to psych up the population for acts of violence committed against me, hate crimes to be committed against my wife. That's what he's trying to do, right? He wants to make it hard for my wife to be an immigrant activist. He wants to make it unsafe for me to walk the streets, spreading that someone is a fascist or a white supremacist, regardless of the facts. If you use your huge platform with hundreds of thousands of subscribers to spread that, you're essentially putting a hit out on somebody. And that's what he's doing. And he can make fun of that and laugh it off all he wants, but that's what he's doing. And you're on the list, John. Very good. That's what he's doing. He's a very vile person, and he has no sense of morality at all, and he absolutely doesn't know anything about socialism. In addition to not being funny, he doesn't know anything about communism or socialism. So Peter Coffin suggested I react to his latest video, which is titled Abolish the Left. We'll get to that. But before we get to that, I have to show you a clip from a video that he made that should confirm everything I just said to you about this awful human being called Thought Slime. And this clip, he made a long video, PragerU. Thank you. He made and you're on the list. He made a video called PragerU Doesn't Understand Democracy, in which he tries to explain what socialism is. He shows edits of a Dinesh D'Souza video opposing democratic socialism, social democracy. And then he tries to explain to PragerU, like he's some kind of expert on Marxism and socialism, that socialism is actually a worker cooperative employee stock ownership plan. It's not, central planning of the economy. It's not a Norwegian welfare state. No. Socialism is just when you and your friends get together and start a pencil factory. It never mentions the problem of overproduction and the tendency of the falling rate of profit. He never mentions the irrationality of capitalism, poverty created by abundance. No, he thinks the problem with capitalism is growth, and he thinks growth is bad. And on top of that, he thinks that, it's basically socialism. He reduces all of Marxism to some people own the factory, some people work in the factory, and that's not fair. And that's not fair. It's no fair, and makes us look like a bunch of babies, which is why right-wingers laugh at us. He reduces socialism it's not fair, the relationship between employers and employees. It's no fair. And so socialism is when you create a worker co-op, so you get rid of that. But in the video, he reveals, he says this. Now, keep in mind, this video that this clip is from, it has hundreds of thousands of views. I think it's probably over 500,000 people have watched this video. This guy is pumped by the algorithms to be the brilliant expert on Marxism. If you want to know what Marxism is about, you should listen to this sarcastic comedian from Canada. And this is what he says in the video. He starts explaining that no. Socialism isn't when you have like a centrally planned economy and control the means of production to raise people out of poverty. No. Socialism isn't that. And here is what he says. And this takes the cake.
Note how I would define democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is essentially what most people mean when they just say socialist without having some modifier like libertarian or Maoist or national, because socialism by definition is democratic in the truest sense of the word. Under socialism, the means of production are socially controlled. In the case of democratic socialism, directly by the people rather than mediated through the state. Some democratic socialists might think that the state ought to exist, at least for a while. They're wrong, but they pointedly don't believe it should control production. They are in contrast to authoritarian socialists, who confusingly also believe, or at least claim to believe, that their system is democratic. Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
Okay, so let's take this apart. So first of all, he says that, democratic socialism doesn't involve state control over the economy, and that Lenin had a theory that the state should control production, and it was called democratic centralism.
Is democratic. Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
Did you hear that? Lenin called the central control of the state central control over the state and the economy democratic socialism. This is your expert. This is the smartest guy on the internet about Marxism.
Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
What is democratic centralism, folks? What is democratic centralism? I hate Wikipedia. Wikipedia is very biased. Wikipedia is very contrary to what we want, but this is what Wikipedia says that democratic centralism is. Democratic centralism is the organization of principal socialist states and most communist parties. In practice, democratic centralism means that political decisions reached by voting processes are binding on all members. Democratic centralism was the method through which the Bolshevik Party made and carried out decisions. It has absolutely nothing to do with central planning of the economy. It's a method Lenin invented in 1903 so that when the Bolshevik Party decided they were going to do something and they voted that they were going to adopt a certain tactic or carry out an operation, they all did it. Even if you voted no, you were still obligated to carry it out. It has nothing to do with the state controlling the means of production. That's Marxism. And the fact that he does not know this, Marx never wanted Marx never wanted the means of production to be controlled by the state. Oh boy, that's just something Lenin made up. He called it democratic centralism. See, because it was like central and he claimed it was democratic, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, this guy's an idiot. He didn't even think to Google democratic centralism before putting that in his video. People are learning. 500,000 people have watched this video to learn what Marxism and socialism are, what democratic centralism is, from a guy who has absolutely no clue what this basic tenet of Leninist theory and how Leninist vanguard parties operate is, and thinks that, Marx never wanted the state to control the means of production. Marx never wanted that. Oh, boy, they never wanted that. That's just something Lenin made up called democratic centralism. That old Lenin dictator, buddy. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I don't know why I say that. When I get fired up, I always want to apologize. Maybe that's my humble small town origin. This is from the Communist Manifesto. Is there any document that might be more accurate in summarizing what communists believe than the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx? Well, there might be a few, but we'll start with the Communist Manifesto. What does the Communist Manifesto say? This is from the Communist Manifesto. We have seen that the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class to win the battle for democracy. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest, by degree, all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state, i.e., the proletariat organizes the ruling class, and to increase the total productivity of the forces as rapidly as possible. Now, I wonder what Marx meant when he said centralize. I also wonder what Marx meant when he said state. No, you have to be retarded to think Lenin would want, that Marx wanted the state to control the means of production, that he wanted a centrally planned economy. That's just something that Lenin made up. Oh boy, it's just something Lenin made up called democratic centralism. Those are Marx's words in the Communist Manifesto. But I continue. Here is Engels in Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific. What does Engels say? The solution to the contradictions. The proletariat seizes the public power, and by means of this transforms the socialized means of production, slipping from the hands of the bourgeoisie into public property. By this act, the proletariat frees the means of production from the character of capital they have thus far borne, and gives the socialized character complete freedom to work itself out. Socialized production upon a predetermined plan becomes henceforth possible. Socialized production upon a predetermined plan. Now, does that mean we just have a bunch of little individual worker pencil factories and everyone just does whatever they want because there's no bosses? No. Socialized production upon a predetermined plan means you have a planned economy. The means of production become the public property. But I continue. Again, Engels, Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific. while the capitalist mode of production more and more completely transforms the great majority of the population into proletarians, it creates power which, under the penalty of its own destruction, is forced to accomplish this revolution. While it forces on more and more the transformation of the vast means of production already socialized into state property, it shows itself that the way to accomplishing the revolution. The proletariat seizes political power and turns the means of production into state property. Oh, you must be retarded. You must be an idiot if you think that Marx wanted the state to control the means of production. He just wanted everyone to open a pencil factory in their backyard. Oh, I must be smart. I have a big platform on social media. I mean, this guy is such a lying sack of shit. He is trying to get me killed, right? And he's basically put a hit out on me to try and get me assassinated. And he's, spreading the claim that I'm a white supremacist and a neo-Nazi, which I am not. And on top of that, he's trying to convince you that Marx never advocated the state controlling the means of production. But it's worse. It's worse than that. And I'm going to emphasize an aspect of these clips I just showed you that shows you how much worse he is. Now, that first clip I showed you, that first quote from the Communist Manifesto, what does it say? It says, the proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize the instruments of production in the hands of the state, and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Meaning, make everyone wealthier, raise the level of abundance in society. We don't want everyone to be poor. We don't want to stop economic growth. It's the opposite. We want to overcome the irrationality of the capitalist system. We want to overcome the problems of the capitalist system that cause poverty to be created by abundance and cause frequent gluts on the market, the problem of overproduction, which doesn't mean, there's just too much stuff. It means that the more wealth that's created, the poorer people get, unemployment caused by too much production, homelessness caused by too many houses, hunger caused by too much food. We want to eliminate that so that the productivity of human labor is exponentially unleashed. That's what it means. We want to raise the level of productive forces, not degrowth, but maximization of growth. And Engels makes this even more abundantly clear. Engels, in the quote I showed you before, where he's explaining what socialism is, he says, the socialized production upon a predetermined plan becomes henceforth possible. The development of production makes the existence of classes of society thenceforth an anachronism. In proportion as anarchy in social production vanishes, the political authority of the state dies out, meaning that as wealth is rationally planned and organized, and as we're producing so much wealth, the need for a state starts to fade away because so much wealth is being produced. Man, at last, the master of his own form of social organization, becomes at the same time lord over nature, free. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we all go back to nature and we stop trying to have these crazy authoritarian trains and power plants and electricity, and we all just go back and live in the woods and the world is back in abundance and it's so beautiful because no one owns anything and it's spiritual, man? Is that what it means? No. It means that with production organized rationally, without the anarchy of production, on a central plan, the level of wealth in society goes up so much that the need for coercion and authoritarianism fades away, and that human beings are so shielded from the chaos of nature, from the chaos of the market, from the irrationality, and that they are no longer slaves to nature. They become lord over nature, his own master, free. It is the exact opposite of what these scum at Breadtube want. The Breadtubers are fascists. Fascism is an attempt to save the capitalist mode of production, to save capitalist production organized for profit, to save the anarchy of production by forcibly degrowing. It's the Nazis who created a slave labor underclass and rented them out to private corporations, broke the labor movement, and put them all in concentration camps, spent huge amounts on the military in order to try and save capitalism. Fascism is degrowth economics. It is prison industrial complexes. It is military industrial complexes. It is Malthusianism, driving down the population. It is eugenics and breeding human beings like animals, all intended to save the capitalist system. And if you read R. Palm Dutt, the author of the amazing book, Fascism and Social Revolution, he lays this all out there. Fascism is about reducing human productivity, reducing the population, and degrowing and preparing for an all-out, ugly, destructive war in order to save capitalism. And that is what the Breadtube crowd want. They want to drive down the population. They want degrowth and forcible impoverishment of people in the Western countries as well as in the Third World. They want to prepare for an all-out war against Russia and China. They are degrowth fascists, not communists. And that needs to be understood. And socialism is what China has, where they've organized the means of production upon a predetermined plan. They control the means of production. A revolutionary organization that has 90 million members, the Chinese Communist Party, controls the means of production and has used it to raise society up and raise millions of people out of poverty and build a modern country in what was once the playground of Wall Street and London. Socialism is what we've seen in Vietnam, Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela. Many countries have seen the great benefits of socialist central planning. Gaddafi's Libya. In Gaddafi's Libya, they had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. They wiped out illiteracy. They built the world's largest irrigation system, the Great Man-Made River. Socialism is about eliminating poverty by centrally organizing the means of production and moving toward a world with so much wealth and so much abundance that the state itself can fade away. It understands that the way to abolish authority and state power and coercion is through creating vast abundance. That's the road to doing so. So with that in mind, we will now watch Thought Slime's video. I started to watch it and I thought, okay, we'll watch for a little bit. I don't know how long we'll be able to stand it. I don't know how much of it will be worth reacting to. We will watch Thought Slime's video, Abolish the Left, right? Because I guess the trendy thing now is to criticize the left, right? Because the left sucks. But this is Thought Slime's attempt to abolish the left. So let's go ahead.
Simply saying that because I am the subject of criticism on the left. No. We can't win any confrontation with the far right unless this changes, because the left has alienated the average person, which in this case is me, with a focus on niche boutique issues. And it needs to focus on outreach specifically towards the white working class, a term I've adopted in this context because it sounds less racist than just saying white people. But actually, it is just racism mixed with a little bit of classism, actually. But don't worry, there's enough plausible deniability to gaslight anyone that points that out. See, we can't let partisanship divide us. Hey, you ever notice that a lot of people say that kind of stuff and they say it right, and then they follow it up with some of the wackest horseshit you've ever heard in your entire life? Just some real garbage brain shit from an idea dumpster. Ideas.
I mean, it's like, so he just, presented a big straw man there about what anyone who criticizes the identity politics, burn America down cult has to say. He's saying it while he's got these weird glasses on. He looks like some kind of demented lesbian secretary from 1960, right? I mean, this is like somebody who worked at the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, in 1960, right? Who's like going to give me a form to fill out my application to get a driver's license. I mean, this is just the glasses, the snide tone of voice, everything about this person is unbelievable. But this is who YouTube wants us to see, right? Bill Gates has decided this is what we should be watching. We shouldn't be learning actual Marxism. We shouldn't be trying to fight for the working class, break down racial barriers, stand in solidarity with people like the Uhuru movement that are facing years in prison for daring to oppose, a confrontation with Russia. Oh, no. This is what we should be listening to. This freak, this internet freak, this failed comedian who now makes suicide porn comedy. Yeah, there you go.
So fundamentally without value that you throw them out, you can't even recycle them. You just throw them right in the dumpster. And here's the...
Is that supposed to be funny? Like, is that supposed to be funny? Just like, oh, he showed a clip from a show of someone throwing something away, so it's funny? Like, what is he even talking about? He just started out with a straw man of people who criticize the left, and then now he's just talking out of his... Is this supposed to be smart? Is this what like identity politics college people think sounds smart? Because it just sounds dumb to me. It sounds like he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Thing about the left. Can we talk for a minute about the left, please? Why is nobody talking about the left?
Everyone talks about the left all the time.
There's something I simply must say about the left. My thought on the subject is fuck the left.
I would agree.
Don't care about the left. I don't owe it my loyalty. Neither do you.
I would agree.
Left isn't anything. It's not a group of people. It's not a tendency. It's not an ideology. The left is not even like a coherent set of goals or policies.
It used to be. The terms left and right started during the French Revolution. After the king was overthrown, they created a national assembly, and the people that were still loyal to the king sat on the right, and those who wanted to march into the future sat on the left. And leftism became identified with those who called themselves revolutionary, wanted to create a more egalitarian society. And for a long time, it was pretty clear the people with the red flags, socialists, anarchists, and communists, were the left. Now, I would agree it's gotten all muddled up because of people like this creep, right? Leftism was all about advancing into the future, but this creep wants us to go back to Mother Nature because he thinks it's more spiritual and that human beings are a cancer on Mother Earth and growth is bad. That's not left. That's fascism. That's the ideology of Julius Evola, one of the ideologues of Italian fascism. That is the occultist fantasies of many of the dark far-right forces, of the eugenicists, of those plotting World War III, the Malthusians, etc. So, yeah, the fact that those ideas are now called left, people who oppose human civilization and humanity itself now call themselves left. At this point, yes, leftism has no coherent definition, and so I don't feel particularly loyal to the left. But the reason for that is because creeps like this have suddenly become the voice of the so-called left. So I don't understand why he's complaining. It's because of people like him that I don't feel safe going to leftist gatherings, even though I've been arrested protesting police brutality, even though I was prominent in Occupy Wall Street. Creeps like him control the left and use violence to try and suppress people like me. So I don't understand what he's complaining about.
Does not exist, aside from as a rhetorical device used to mean like anybody who considers themselves on the left or anybody who considers themselves on the left would consider to be like their pals, their buddies. There is no...
Well, there is like a mob of people that want to drive Donald Trump out of office, that burn down cities, that try to shut down right-wing speakers, that try to get college professors fired if they don't agree about the transgender thing. There is a mob of very hateful adolescents who are mad at society and get psyched up by his videos to do all kinds of crazy things. That does exist. I mean, whether you want to call them the left or not. And in fact, he's one of the primary influencers in this crowd of degrowth, sex obsessed, hateful punishment, mob justice, destroyers of civilization. I mean, whatever you want to call them. I don't think that they're left. They're not left in the way the Soviet Union was. They're not left in the way Marx and Lenin were. But whatever they are, he's one of the main people leading them. And if you don't want to call them the left, that's fine. But they exist, and they're a fucking problem.
consistent set of beliefs that unites people on the left. No economic theory, no social policy, no guiding principle. You'll hear the term used to describe everything from hardcore anarchist revolutionaries to neoliberal ghouls who at least don't actively seem to want to feed gay people into a wood chipper right now. And like everything in between that, too. And perceptive viewers might notice from the examples that...
Like, is he trying to sound smart now? Because it's like, and also even that video, even that thing he just gave, right? Like, you'll notice, right? Like in this clip he just showed about, what is it? The people, the here, where is it? Pull up the little map he made. Yeah. So it's hardcore anarchists and Democrats. The two march together at this point. They're inseparable from each other. They both want an all-out war against Russia. They want to spend billions of dollars on arming Ukraine, arming the Nazis in Ukraine, and waging a war against Russia. They both want to send huge amounts of weapons to Taiwan and provoke a confrontation with China. They both want to have the internet outlaw anyone who's critical of the Biden administration. So I'm not seeing the contradiction here, right? Obama and Trudeau versus, people in black masks. They both basically think the same thing. They all hate Oliver Anthony because, God forbid, his song about how hard it is for working people to pay their bills didn't have enough transgender pronouns in it. So he must be a neo-Nazi. He must be the Klan. I don't see the difference, right? The Democratic Party that's pushing degrowth, that's pushing identity politics, and the crazy people out in the streets with masks on, who think that anyone who opposes World War III against Russia is the same as Hitler. They're the same, right? They march in complete lockstep. I mean, there is no differentiation between the two. The actual left that used to exist was the Communist Party, was Gus Hall, was labor unions, was the Black Panthers. That was the actual left. It was not anarchist fuckheads, and it was not the Democratic Party. So even here, I don't see any actual leftists on your stupid map.
Too. And perceptive viewers might notice from the examples that I just gave, any such coalition is doomed. Those groups can work together over common goals, but also they have mutually exclusive goals that at some point they're going to need to resolve. And that's good. To be clear, that's a good part about that. That's a good job. That's part of coalition building.
It's supposed to be so funny if he just uses a sarcastic voice or something. That's his idea of a punchline, as if he shows a clip of someone throwing something in the garbage, or he just makes something go good job on his screen. That's supposed to make us laugh. I feel like I'm in kindergarten. This is like watching Sesame Street or something. And it's trying to sound so much smarter than it is. Yes, different people in coalitions work together. That's why I am always saying we need to build as big of an anti-war coalition as possible, because World War III is coming.
You set aside your disagreements, temporarily if need be, to achieve something desirable to all parties. But at some point, you got to go, hey, there's also stuff we disagree about. What are you going to do? And then have a big argument. There are degrees of disagreement, though. There are some disagreements which, although we might not ever be able to resolve, we should by no means tolerate. Disagreements whose effects are too fundamental, too immediate, and too costly to ignore in the service of cooperation. For example, if you wanted to kill Batman, you could not ally yourself with Robin, because he's not going to support you, Even if you agree with Robin on a lot of stuff, you're going to come into conflict about the whole Batman issue. Now, where are you
He's speaking with a sarcastic voice. It's just so funny. I'm just dying laughing here. It's just and what does that even mean? You couldn't align with Robin because you wanted to kill Batman. Well, what if you and Robin were both trapped in an elevator together and Batman was nowhere near there, and you both wanted to escape from the elevator? Could you cooperate to escape from that elevator or not? I think you could.
That line is going to vary. I'm not going to give you some prescriptive commandments about who you are and who you are not allowed to cooperate with.
Oh, really? You're not going to give people prescriptions. Your whole channel is canceling people because of guilt by association, saying that you talked to so-and-so talked to so-and-so, and so they should have their life destroyed. Right? I have had so many people go after me for daring to meet with a Russian intellectual who is not even a fascist, right? Because he highlighted that once on his channel. I mean, his whole channel is like, oh, if you talk to one person who said something wrong on the trans thing, we should destroy your life. No, don't pretend you're not going to draw that line for people. That's what your whole channel is about. That is what your whole channel is about, Thought Slime. That is what your whole channel is about. It's about inciting people to hate, telling people who the bad people are and inciting your viewers against them, and misrepresenting facts and lying and trying to destroy people's lives and reputations. You are a cancel culture queen, so don't give me that.
I'm not an organizer. I'm a blowhard. I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, so why don't you shut the fuck up and let those of us who actually believe in socialism and actually want to stop World War III actually organize and try, instead of trying to work with the state to incite violence against them.
I am the least entitled person to an opinion on anything.
Yet, except you're blasted all over the internet because the Silicon Valley tech monopolists want us to hear your view, because the pro-NATO manipulators want us to hear your view. You're blasted everywhere because there are powerful forces who think we should be listening to you and not the people trying to build an anti-war movement right now. So yeah, you know, it does matter what you say, because our rulers, the people you supposedly are fighting, even though you agree with them all the time, have decided that you are the one we should hear from, not genuine communists who want to stop World War III and want to fight for the working class, not cancel people over pronouns.
It's complicated and difficult. I'm in no position to tell you where the line is, you know? But one thing, which sits comfortably on the do not tolerate side of the line, is anything less than full-throated active support for the well-being, equality, and autonomy of any political minority. Compromising on that is not only, and I don't want to overstate my point here, but evil, but also...
Oh, so where's his video supporting the Uhuru movement then, right? Maybe he didn't notice that the Biden administration raided the homes of a group of Black revolutionary activists last August, flew drones into their houses, dragged them out of their houses in handcuffs, and is now indicted them, charging them with being Russian agents. So clearly, you know, if you have to support every political minority, I can't think of a more persecuted political minority right now than the People's Democratic Uhuru movement. And we at CPI have given them a platform. We have supported them. We have helped raise money for them. We have done everything we can to support them. I haven't seen a single thing on his channel supporting them. And his crowd of people, they all support the FBI going after them because they say that they're a cult. Based on what? I don't know. They lie and claim that they're the same as this other group called Black Hammer, and they are trying to justify the FBI crackdown on people. So if the whole thing you should never compromise on is political minorities being repressed, why is he not one of the first people? Why is he not using his huge platform right now to blast out support for the People's Democratic Uhuru movement? Why? Because he's a fraud. That's why.
Foolish, tactically speaking. Because, like, if you're in a situation where it isn't tactically foolish, if you have a goal where it makes strategic sense to throw a political minority under the bus, then probably what's happening there is your goal sucks. You have an asshole goal for shitty asshole guys that an asshole might have.
Yeah, you throwing the People's Uhuru movement under the bus and repeating the claim that they're a cult in order to back up the FBI and support the political prosecution of them does make you an asshole. You're talking about yourself, Thought Slime, and you were right.
Trolling for the well-being of the left invariably presents itself as the moderate, sensible, popular position. Anything these people don't like is too unrealistic, too utopian. You'll never sell it to the normies. Frustratingly, this type of rhetoric is used even when the position of the people using it is less popular or less credible, or in some cases, flat out trash brain garbage for idea babies to piss and shit their brain diapers with.
He used a bunch of naughty words. Oh my God, it's so funny. He said piss and shit and talked about diapers. Oh my God, I'm gonna die laughing. I mean, this is just so elaborately hilarious and funny. I mean, he's talking about feces like he always does on his slime channel for slime-brained people.
These people don't argue that their position is more logical or morally superior, just that it's the best we can do right now. So it's better than nothing, right? Like, you know, if you can't get on board with this, then you're just a saboteur, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. You're gatekeeping, you're wrecking. When
like having an argument with himself, with like voices in his head who disagree with him about transgender pronouns. I think that's what I'm getting from this video. He's got another personality in his head that's always yelling at him about maybe wanting to work with people who aren't obsessed with the trans issue. And so he's like having a public argument with this other personality in his mind about this.
This logic is weaponized against political minorities. It usually goes something like this. Yeah, like I agree, obviously, with what you're saying. In theory, in a perfect world, it's just right now, in this political climate, it's very much, it's too complicated, you know? It's so controversial what you're saying, even though, again, I totally get it. It's just most people won't. And like, also, Can I say also, like, why are we spending so much energy on the needs of such a small group of people when it's going to turn off the majority citation needed? We got to think big picture here. And that makes a certain surface level sense to a particular type of asshole. But there are some problems with this argument. Firstly, and this should go without saying, it's cowardly. It's the type of argument you can only make if you're a complete spineless chicken.
And it has nothing to do with any argument that anyone I know has ever made. I mean, it has absolutely nothing to do with anything. He's like having an argument with people in his head.
Shit, a moral infant. If you make this type of argument, I'm forced to assume you are, at this moment, concealing that you've been bitten by a zombie. Secondly, consider this little thought experiment.
What the hell is he talking about? Zombies?
I got a little brain tickler for you here. Whose support do you think will be more valuable for you? People whose material well-being specifically depends on your success? Or people who don't really give a shit either way? People are so disinterested that the slightest discomfort will stop them from engaging in the issue whatsoever. Third,
what the hell is he talking about? Like, is someone saying we shouldn't support black people against police brutality? Like, what the hell is he talking about?
The whole premise rests on two assumptions, of which at least one is always total horseshit. That the rights of the political minority in question are some sort of highly unpopular third-rail position, and this is usually justified by, like, a conversation they claim they had with some sort of archetypical common man. They talk...
Yeah, and he's having this argument with a voice in his head or something. This is so weird. Like, what in the world is he talking about? Some of us are trying to stop World War III. Some of us are trying to mobilize the working class to fight for jobs and healthcare and education instead of piling billions of dollars into Ukraine. And he's sitting here talking about how, like, there's people that say we shouldn't talk about trans stuff because of what the hell is he talking about?
With their bus driver about gender self-ID, and they didn't get it. So, like, how can you expect the working class to understand such ideas? Because the second assumption is, of course, that the ignorant swine who represent your base cannot have their inherently self-interested and bigoted minds changed. Of course, we, the more sophisticated and intelligent political class, can understand such highfalutin ideas, like, for example, that it's bad to be racist. But the average person is a kind of soulless, thoughtless machine. They exclusively seek base pleasure and avoid discomfort. They're incapable of reason or empathy or any higher form of thought, really.
Well, there are some people whose religion dictates that homosexuality and transgenderism violates their religious beliefs. And I might disagree with them about that, but I'd be happy to march with them against the death penalty, or march with them against World War III, or march with them demanding jobs. There are some people, who are feminists who have concerns about women's sports, or have concerns about bathrooms and other things. And I don't know enough about those issues, and that's not the hill I want to die on. And I'm more concerned about raising living standards and trying to stop World War III than I am with winning an argument on the internet about who's a good person and who's a bad person. This has nothing to do with any argument that anyone I know has ever made. We're trying to stop a new world war. He's having an argument in his head with people who talk to their bus drivers about gender stuff or something. Like, this is like, what in the world is this lunatic talking about?
And we're like onto gods to them. We must shepherd them carefully, lest our enlightened thinking move too fast, frightening and confusing their primitive, superstitious little minds. You see, you dumb utopian baby, if we fight for something so unpopular or out there, as the logic goes, it hurts the broader and more achievable goals of the left.
What in the hell is he talking about? I have no idea what he is talking about. I really have no clue what he's talking about at this point. Right? I mean, it's like he's trying to do the we only want the earth thing, if we demand the most radical demands, they'll have to meet us in the middle or so. I don't know. I mean, it's just I'm lost here. This has absolutely nothing to do with the pressing issue at the time, which is our country being grinded into poverty by the big banks and corporations as they set the stage for an all-out war against Russia and China, and the need to mobilize and work with anyone possible to stop it from happening. I mean, that's the situation we're in. They are marching us every day closer to World War III. They are deindustrializing the country. They are setting up a low-wage police state, and either we're going to go along with it or we're not. And this has absolutely nothing to do with this. What in the world does any of this have to do with this?
The ones I support, not the ones you support, because we have to be willing to compromise. I don't want to alarm you, but the far right, they're on the verge of winning. They're one election away from taking the whole pot. Okay, they're gaining momentum every day, and the only way to stop them now, I hate to say it, I really do, is to do the things that they're asking for, is to specifically do the things that they're agitating for. That's the only way to stop them. They want us to do that because it would stop them and make them less powerful.
Who is saying this? Who is saying this? I'm lost. I mean, he's having an argument with a fictional character in his mind. And it's wacky. I mean, this guy lives in an alternate political universe, right? I mean, is this like the kind of argument that they have at the, at the strategy table at, the Planned Parenthood transgender outreach debating society or something? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, in the real world, people are worried about paying their bills. People are worried about World War III breaking out and all of humanity dying. I mean, these are not conversations that I'm having anywhere. I mean, either side, I have never had this kind of debate with anybody.
And, plus, like, if they do win, like, I'm white, so if they want to do racist stuff, I would bet.
The Uhuru movement are not white. It's a black nationalist group. And the Biden administration is trying to throw them in prison because they organize in their community and are opposed to sending weapons to Ukraine. Minister Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam, who he's attacked me for working with, is one of the most well-respected leaders of the black community who organized the Million Man March. I have literally been to conferences in Iran to support the black freedom struggle. I literally videotaped an act of police brutality in Cleveland and got a young black woman acquitted in court with my video. So I don't know what he's talking about.
These compromises, of course, are always in service of power, in service of the status quo, in service to the exact structures we are meant to be opposing by making these compromises. It never works in the other direction. Never is the more moderate left asked to adopt a more radical position based on its popularity, feasibility, or outright necessity. We're meant to dismiss allies who agree with our positions in favor of courting allies who do not. Because maybe, if we do everything they ask for, they'll get on our side. That's what it means to get someone on your side, by the way.
What is our side? Our side would be the people who don't want World War III. Our side would be the labor unions. Our side would be the black community and the forces opposing the police state. Our side would not be the transgender defeat Trump cancel culture brigade. So, I mean, that's not our side. So this is some kind of internal video among the slime and mud throwing collective.
When you do something differently, because that's what they wanted, it means you changed their mind. We are asked to make this bargain constantly, to ignore some hideous injustice because, they claim, to focus on it necessarily distracts from all others.
No, you're ignoring the hideous injustice of black revolutionaries facing 10 years in prison. You are ignoring the hideous injustice of billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine while America is falling apart. You are ignoring the hideous injustice of Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg deciding for us what political views we're allowed to hear on the internet. You're ignoring all of those injustices because you want to impose some kind of academic social justice, make everyone equal, equal and focus on sex agenda onto society. You are ignoring the fact that the country is becoming a low-wage prison state. They're outlawing dissent, and they're setting up for an all-out war with Russia and China, which might involve a nuclear confrontation.
So you end up in this shell game scenario where the one true meaningful injustice is always the one you're not putting every iota of your effort into. And in order to fix it, you just got to ignore every other problem in the world. Those are all distractions.
Like and we're literally marching off a cliff right now toward World War III and a fascist state. And he's talking to people who are involved in helping that happen about why they should make the transgender thing the central focus among people who want that low-wage police state and want to march us into World War. This is some. I mean, makes me happy I'm not in these kinds of political circles. I mean, if this is the terms of discourse, I mean, some people are out of touch with reality.
This isn't a new technique. Throughout history, wherever there have been people fighting for any sort of social justice, equality, freedom from oppression, no matter how just their cause, you can find examples of that movement hypocritically excluding others in betrayal of their own principles. Whether it's white women within the suffragette movement refusing to stand in solidarity with women of color, to modern-day quote-unquote anti-imperialists who deride and ridicule the land back movement without bothering to do the barest iota of research, just crack open Wikipedia and just really even look at what the definition of the term is, really understand the thing that they're criticizing, just do the bare minimum, just really even look into any of it. And this is the problem that...
Well, actually, one thing that I've pointed out is that with the land back movement, the definition of land back constantly changes. If land back just means that you believe the indigenous people have the right to sovereignty, to separate from the American government, maybe get some reparation supports in doing so, I'm for it. If land back means every white person must leave North America because we're all a bunch of evil white settlers, I'm not for it. If land back means an NGO program set up by George Soros to promote the privatization of public lands, I'm against it. And the problem with land back is that you're not allowed to ask what it means. The definition constantly moves, but if you don't immediately agree with it, you're a big fat racist. That's the problem. It's one of these slogans that has absolutely no meaning. And we're not allowed to so much as ask, what does this actually mean? And if we ask that, the response is, oh my God, how dare you ask what it means? I'm just asking what it means, right? Again, if it means the right of indigenous people or black people or the Chicano people to separate from the United States and establish their own governments, communists invented that. Look up the Black Belt South position of the Communist Party during the 1930s. We invented that. Right? The right of self-determination for oppressed nationalities within U.S. borders is something communists practically invented. Okay? So, you know, but if you so much as ask, they love to put forward these slogans that don't have any meaning, right? They love to say, like, abolish the police. Now, what does abolish the police mean, right? Oh, abolish the police. All right, so it's midnight, and my house is being broken into by a gang of violent rapists. What do I do? Right? I'm not allowed to have my own gun because owning guns is racist. I can't defend myself with my own firearm. So what do I do? Well, most working class people hear abolish the police and they think you're nuts. Right? Now, when you press the abolish the police crowd, what they say they mean is they say, oh, well, we're going to set up like a community organization that will enforce the law. And they're like, oh, so you're going to have like a new form of police that are not protecting the property of the capitalists, they're protecting the property of the people. Why don't you say that? Why don't you just say we need the dictatorship of the proletariat? Why don't you just say we need a working class government? Why would you say abolish the police, something that sounds crazy to most people who hear it? Why would you say that, right? Why not just say we need a working class government, a worker and farmer government, a government for working families? Why don't you just say that? Because that wouldn't be off-putting to people. It wouldn't make you look crazy. You wouldn't be able to have people say, well, I don't want that. And you can go, racist. I mean, it's like this game they love to play. Same with prison abolition. You read what Angela Davis has written about prison abolition. What she's saying is that eventually we'd like to move toward a society in which the need for a coercive state that imprisons people goes away. The highest stage of communism. I agree with that. But if you say abolish prisons, most people hear that and go, oh, so we just let the rapists and Jeffrey Dahmer and all the child molesters and axe murderers, we just let them all out, huh? You know, it sounds nuts. And this is the game they like to play. Instead of actually challenging capitalist power, they come up with some kind of wild thesis like open borders now, abolish police, abolish prisons that sounds so radical. And they talk about it in this highfalutin academic way, and they don't have to actually challenge power. Saying abolish the police doesn't mean shit, but standing up for the Uhuru movement against the FBI and the Department of Justice means a lot right now, and these people aren't doing it. Saying I'd like to abolish the military someday doesn't mean shit, but saying that we need to stop the funding of Ukrainian Nazis and stop prolonging the conflict in Ukraine and move toward de-escalation, that does actually matter. And this highfalutin, radical sounding language is a way of avoiding actually taking a stand on the real issues that are dividing us. Again, our country is being locked down into a police state. They're outlawing dissent on the internet and in real life. They are marching us toward a new world war. And these people are sitting there going, I think someday I'd like to have completely open borders and abolish the police and abolish the military. And it's like a game that they play. How can we sound super radical and not challenge actual power?
Intersectional analysis was intended to help us study, to create the understanding that various forms of oppression intersect, creating unique material conditions and forms of oppression for those people who unfortunately find themselves within that intersection.
Yeah, well, see, all of that intersectionality and all that was invented by the CIA as a way to counter actual Marxism. Right? Critical theory, postmodernism, all of that was promoted by American intelligence with the Congress for Cultural Freedom program and all of that to counter actual Marxism, which said that putting the needs of oppressed groups like the Black liberation struggle in the front was a way of unifying the entire working class. They built interracial unions among the sharecroppers. They built the Civil Rights Congress, to oppose Jim Crow segregation. All of that intersectionality, blah, 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 blah. Listen, let's compare forms of oppression and talk about who's the most oppressed, and then white gender mansplaining. All of that was invented to counter the ideology that mobilized oppressed people in the United States and around the world to fight for their national liberation and actually win it all across the country during the 20th century. So, everything you said there is just bullshit.
Beyond merely simply the combined effects of like two discrete types of oppression, a new symbiotic oppression is made. What people don't talk about as much is how these forms of oppression mutually reinforce one another. Easy example you've heard a million times, right? Racism enforces capitalism. Prejudice against racialized people is projected onto the poor and lower class and vice versa. It's an easy way for bourgeois interests to divide workers and create scapegoats for their own excesses. And also, just directly take a bunch of people's shit. Just take it and have it and own it. Then if anybody gets mad at them, they can go, but no, you're not poor because of me, because I have all the money. You're poor because Jews have bad money DNA, probably is what it is. And also, one time at the supermarket, I saw a black woman buy a lobster with a food stamp, so probably that's why you're poor. Obviously, racism.
Is that what anyone says? No. The understanding is that in the United States, the way they have rolled back the welfare state is by racializing it. And we hear the term welfare mother. Unfortunately, we've come to think of a black woman, even though the majority of women in the United States who have children and receive government assistance are white. And that by racializing the question of the social welfare state, they have galvanized white support for cutting social programs. That's the issue there, right? And that part of Richard Nixon and the neocons and the Southern strategy was convincing low-income white people that cuts in economic benefits and social programs were intended to target black people and appealing to their racism. I think that's the issue at hand there. That's what he's trying to point toward. I don't think any of those people ever talk about Jews measuring skulls or any of that stuff. I think it's just because Yeah, Ronald Reagan talked about welfare queens, you know, and there's a stereotype about public employees being black and, you know, not working hard and getting too good benefits and all of that. And that this is a thing that the neoconservative austerity right wing has done is they've racialized economic issues like public spending, like the welfare state, like unions. They've racialized it in order to, you know, advance, in order to advance an agenda of austerity, which is what he agrees with. He believes in degrowth, making everyone poorer. And that was one mechanism for driving down people's income, reducing consumption, right? Making people poorer. Now, instead of having, you know, deregulation to make people poorer, now they're escalating the degrowth by forcibly degrowing and forcibly reducing industrial production, et cetera. But the agenda has always been the same. It's the limits to growth, the club of Rome. There's too many people in the world. We must reduce consumption. We must save capitalism by getting rid of the useless eaters. It's the same agenda, whether it comes in the form of economic neoliberal privatizations and austerity and gutting the welfare state, or forcible degrowth from BlackRock and the World Economic Forum. It's the same program, motivated by the same problems of capitalism and the same belief that the only option for saving the capitalist system is degrowth instead of workers coming together and taking control of the banks, factories, and industries. And thank you, Felonious Punk. I will respond to that and keep the super chats rolling in, right? We got a whole second half of the show here. You know, I love what I do. I love what I do. We'll continue with this for a little bit longer. I don't know how much longer we're going to go on this, but, you know, gives us something to talk about at least, right?
Still be bad whether or not it intersected with capitalism, and capitalism would likewise be bad in any sort of hypothetical alternate reality scenario where it developed without racism. Both of these things would be problems that required solving without the other, but in a world where both exist, like this one, Earth, you have to fight both. Otherwise, the struggle against either is incomplete.
So it's like he thinks that like there's a list of isms that are bad: capitalism, racism, imperialism, sexism, and like there's people who believe in these isms, and so we need to point fingers at them and call them bad people. Do you believe in one of those isms? Are you a believer in capitalism? Are you a believer in sexism? Are you a believer in racism? Well, you're a bad person, and I'm going to point at you. That's what he thinks. And so he's saying, why should we prioritize capitalism over racism? Well, this is not a correct understanding of how these things work. That social relations are based in the economic foundations of society. And that slavery was a way of primitive accumulation. It was the beginning of the capitalist system. You know, the separating of communities and the stigmatizing of some communities while at the expense of other communities and building up. I mean, all of this is the nature of a system of production called capitalism. And the experiences that certain communities have been subjected to is something that's been carried out to maintain an overall economic structure in society. Right? It's not just a bunch of bad people who believe in bad things, which is what he thinks, right? And he's going to shame them on his YouTube channel and incite his teenage audience to harass them on the internet, and that'll make it go away, right? He doesn't get that. Racism, it's not, there's a list of bad things in this world: capitalism, racism, sexism. No, there's a system called imperialism, capitalism in its monopoly stage, that makes a lot of people miserable, and we have to do everything we can to destroy it so we can have a whole new world. And he doesn't see it that way. He just has a checklist of bad things people think and need to be punished for.
Well, for you, transmisogyny reinforces misogyny classic. The ways that trans women's bodies and behaviors are scrutinized and demonized are then ported from the trans engine to the cis engine, which actually is pretty easy because that's the engine it was developed for, and used to control the bodies and behaviors of cis women. Cis women become the collateral damage in attempts to stop.
Nobody who's not on the internet gives a shit about any of this, okay? When it comes to the trans issue, there are some people who say, you know what? When my daughter plays basketball, I'm not comfortable with somebody who's, got a body of a man being on the basketball team with them. And there's some people who say, actually, it's okay because of medical reasons. And that's the debates people are having. There are some people who are saying, I don't think, people that are under the age of 12 are mature enough to know what they want to do with their body and take puberty blockers. And other people are saying it's necessary for them to do that so they don't kill themselves, etc. But no one's sitting there going, well, actually, the way that the body is, this is like some kind of internet subculture debate. Nobody is sitting around. In the real world, people aren't having debates like that. People are asking, why are very radical ideas about gender deconstruction and sex being presented to my children? And I may not be okay with that. And that's really the terms of the debate that most people are having. Most people are not sitting there talking about, oh, well, the stereotypes about trans women's bodies. This is like, again, this is your brain on woke. He lives in this alternate reality. He's having an argument with somebody in his brain. Oy, oy, oy.
Women from existing and need to conform to cis heteronormative standards to demonstrate their womanhoodliness. Cut your hair too short or have too many muscles.
Is this supposed to sound smart because he's using like strict heteronormative blah, blah, blah. I sound like I'm a Judith Butler book. I must be smart. Blah, 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 blah. You sound like a fucking idiot.
And you might not be allowed to piss anymore or run in a race. Because what if you're a secret trans in disguise? Better take your rights away, just in case. Simultaneously, trans women are themselves the collateral damage in patriarchal attempts to control cis women.
No one talks like this and in real life. I guarantee you this. Nobody in real life talks like this. There are some people who don't think people under 12 should go on puberty blockers. There are some people who think that on their women's basketball team, there shouldn't be people who formerly identified as male. That's about it. No one's sitting here talking about heteronormative and the gender relations of the oppression of the misogyny of the blah, 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 blah. I'm so smart. I got an A+ in gender study. Oh, shut the fuck up. No one cares. No one cares. These people, everyone hates these people. Everyone hates these people. They're annoying. They go to college and they learn to talk like this. I'm so smart because I can talk about white oppression and intersection. Oh, shut the fuck up. No one cares. No one cares. People are hungry. People are angry about their country turning into a low-wage police state. People want their lives to get better. People want there to be a stop targeting of certain communities. They want an end to the cutting of social programs, but no one is sitting there talking about the gender normative. Shut up. Shut up. Nobody is talking that way. No one in the real fucking world talks like you, right? This is a totally manufactured, undergraduate, brainwash, brain fuck that our society has been subjected to. William Z. Foster, Gus Hall, Huey Newton, and the Black Panthers didn't talk like this, okay? This is just drivel. This is just a bunch of drivel that's been shoved into the place of revolutionary ideology.
Establish the boundaries of the feminine and police the bodies and identities of all kinds of different women. Some tall, some short, some...
He's still going. He's still going on. Like, he thinks that we care about this, that we want to be impressed with his gender studies thesis here. We're not impressed. No one's impressed.
Of them have swords. All women. In both of these examples, you cannot fight one problem without fighting the other.
Nobody is impressed here. No one on planet Earth is impressed by this.
Try, you're just putting it in another place for it to get stronger later and come back and get you. You're not dismantling an oppressive structure. You're just asking for permission to be let into the oppressing group. And I can't exactly judge anyone for that. I am the beneficiary of all oppression in the world. But
Oh, wow. Did he just admit he was privileged? Oh, man. What a big, amazing person. Play the violin. Play the violin for this guy. Oh, my God.
Would like to extend a word of caution, if I may. If you do manage to get put into the in-group, that's not going to last forever. Helping the people who are oppressing you now cook up a new way to oppress someone else, you can imagine how that plan might backfire, right? Ironically, the right seems to understand this better than the left sometimes, but like in the backwards brain way that they don't really understand anything. They'll label any attempt to advocate for marginalized people as communist, as an evil Marxist plot.
I'm already getting bored here. We'll give him a little while longer to say something worth reacting to, but this is just a bunch of gender studies drivel. Like, this is just a bunch of gibberish. And it's like our country is literally marching on the brink to World War III. And instead of talking about that, as the country gets poorer, as people are dying of opioids and all of that, all we get to listen to is this undergrad woke Judith Butler gibberish about who's the most oppressed and who gets points for talking about the most oppressed or whatever.
Like, there's a famous photo of a shithead in Little Rock, Arkansas protesting school integration in 1959, holding up a sign that reads, "Race mixing is communism." While I doubt that this man had a robust knowledge of communist theory or a rich understanding of...
Well, the reason for that is because the Communist Party had been on the vanguard of fighting for racial equality. William Z. Foster, Gus Hall, the Communist Party USA fought for racial equality. Paul Robeson, William L. Patterson, all the people that you equate with Nazis because they defended the Soviet Union, understood that the oppression of black people was an issue that could dismantle U.S. imperialism. And the Communist Party USA made fighting for the rights of African Americans one of the primary issues they focused on. And you and your crowd equate people who defended Stalin with Nazis when the Communist Party USA was well known to be one of the only groups to make clear that they were in favor of racial equality. And a lot of people in the black community supported them because of that. And this was very, very clear even up into the 1950s and the time of McCarthyism. Right. And that's something that these kind of people always gloss over. They always want to tell you about how the Communist Party was somehow racist or Stalin did blah, 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 blah. But the truth is that the record of the Communist Party USA, of the hardline Marxist, Leninist, Stalinists, they were the anti-racists until the mid-50s. They dominated anti-racist circles. So, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois was a huge admirer of both Stalin and Mao. The Black Panthers sent delegations to North Korea and republished the writings of Kim Il-sung. So it's like for him to, to sit here and ramble about, these people equated racism with, it's like they did it because communists were so well known to be leaders of the anti-racist struggle. In my little town in Ohio, I've told you all about, they had a newspaper article after the first black family bought a house in my little town in Ohio. And the headline was, "Take That, Uncle Joe." And it started with a quote from Stalin about how America was a racist country and treated black people badly. And the article said, "Oh, that can't be the case because, look, we allowed this black family to buy a house. So take that, Uncle Joe." That it was very well known to all of America in the 1950s that the communists fought for the rights of black people, not conformists like you. Not people who go along with the propaganda of hating Russia, hating China, hating whoever CNN tells them to hate. It was the people who were smart enough to question authority, the people who were smart enough to get arrested and go to prison and be sent to prison under the Smith Act for being communists and being agents of the Russians. It was those people, those of us who actually have some fucking courage. It was us who opposed racism, while fucktards like you who go along with whatever you're being told were supporters of Jim Crow segregation. Thought Slime, if this was the 1950s, you would have been that guy standing there with a sign that said race mixing is communism, because you go along with whatever mainstream media says. You hate Russia. You targeted me simply because I work at Russian media, because you try to demonize anyone associated with Russia. You would have been throwing feces at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because CNN said so. The mainstream media said so. Anyone who's tied to Russia is bad. The only reason you call yourself a leftist now is because it's trendy and hip all of a sudden, and it has nothing to do with being a revolutionary or being an anti-imperialist. The people who stood with black people back in the days of Jim Crow segregation were the people who had courage, the people who questioned mainstream media, the people who got kicked out of their colleges. They didn't just repeat whatever their college professors said. Shut the fuck up.
Historical and material reality of white supremacy. And I do disagree with the premise that race mixing is communism. He's not wrong to make the connection, right? What his pea brain has figured out is, if you're going to advocate for some people to be equal, it's a slippery slope towards all people becoming equal. It's just that, that would be good.
Communism is, right? We just want to make everyone absolutely equal. We just, that's what I learned in 5th grade. Communism's when everyone gets paid the exact same wage, no matter how hard they work. I mean, it's like, this guy, can he get stupider than this, right? So that's what communists believe. We want everyone to just be absolutely equal. That's what communism is, right? It's not about public ownership of the means of production. It's not about dismantling imperialism. It's not about having a rationally planned economy so growth is unlimited. No. According to Thought Slime, right? Race mixing is communism is right, he says, because communists are people who are just like, some people have more wealth than other people. It's no fair, right? It's like they take the Fox News characterization of what communists believe and they believe it, right? We're just idiots who think, oh, everyone should just be totally equal. That's totally fine. And then it just takes, it takes anyone to come along and say, oh, yeah, well, what if somebody works harder than somebody else? There has to be incentive and human nature and blah, 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 blah. It's like these people have never tried to dismantle the right-wing cliches against communism. They haven't spent their whole lives trying to dismantle the disinformation, the lies about communism. They just hear what the right wing says against communism, and they adopt it as their belief and call people racist if they disagree. It's infuriating. As someone who's spent their entire adult life trying to build a communist movement in America, to have idiots like this promoted here, who are like the best friends Fox News ever had. Yeah, that's what we all want. We all just want to make everyone equal.
And he thinks it's bad because he's a shithead. This racist dipshit understood that any victory for Black Americans, anything which brings them closer towards freedom and equality, weakens the apparatus used to also deny freedom and equality to the working class.
No, that guy probably just understood that he was a racist and he lived in the Jim Crow South, and that the people who'd been opposing racism for much longer than any of the mainstream liberals were the communists. And notice how he just completely ignores the legacy of the Communist Party in fighting racism. No mention of the Scottsboro Nine, no mention of Angelo Herndon, no mention of Paul Robeson, no mention of Langston Hughes, none of that, right? He just completely glosses over the historical reality that communists were on the van. Just completely covers that up. Doesn't fit his narrative that anyone who defends Russia and defends Stalin is a neo-Nazi. Wow. He really does believe that this Southern racist in his photo, took gender studies at NYU and disagreed with it. Oh yes, well, see, I am upholding all the different forms of oppression, and see, I understand that liberating Black people will help implement intersectionality, and that is against what I want. It's unbelievable. He really does believe that some Southern cracker with a sign that says race mixing is communism is sitting there like digesting the work of Judith Butler and thinking the opposite. How stupid can you get?
Because many working class people are themselves Black, but also because of the
no shit
methods and justifications used to subdue both groups share a great deal of ideological common ground. Again, he just thought that was cool.
No, he didn't. He just knew that the Communist Party USA was heavily involved in the struggle against racism, and that Stalin was making statements condemning racism. He knew that the Soviet Union was taking a petition to the United Nations on behalf of Black people, and he was a racist, and so he was trying to appeal to the anti-communism and the Russophobia of people like you to get them to oppose the civil rights movement as well. He was trying to make allies out of fucktards like you who believe whatever the U.S. media tells them about foreign policy. That's what he was trying to do. He was trying to build unity among Russia-hating pieces of shit like yourself in order to oppose the civil rights movement.
He thought it's cool that some people are oppressed on account of the shitheadedness. People like Anna will argue that identitarian concerns distract from economic issues.
I'm done with the identitarian garbage. I'm done with it. It is a giant distraction. The left.
Is that what this is about? He's mad at Anna Kasparian?
The people who are supposed to be fighting for a better economic system, better economic conditions, better working conditions, all of that stuff pushed aside. Let's focus on the identitarian stuff.
That they divide the working class.
And the identitarian stuff by nature divides us and leads to more fights, more conflict, even among us.
She just started talking this way, right? She's been the biggest cancel culture queen that there is out there. She's viciously gone after me, after Gray Zone, after all kinds of people. But so many people are getting tired of the pink-haired Nazis, the pink-haired degrowth Nazis, the pronoun police. People are getting tired of them. So she put on a little show in order to go viral and get attention so she can be on the other side of that argument, because she knows it's a losing battle. Everyone's getting tired of the pink-haired pronoun police Nazis. Everyone's getting tired of them. People are worried about the danger of a new world war. People want jobs, healthcare, and education. And everyone's getting tired of them. And so even people on the woke side are starting to march away from this. That's, I guess, why Mr. Skippy the Bear Thought Slime is having anxiety, because he's fighting a losing battle.
us. But that's the point.
But like, okay, let's think that through for a second. Let's work that out in our brains. If you are excluded from the full and equal participation in the world on the basis of identity, say race or gender, sexuality, disability, left-handedness, whether or not you like Naruto, whatever. Do you see how that quickly becomes an...
This is like all this oppression, blah, 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 oppression thing. Like, this is boring. I mean, I'm serious. I am going to turn this off here in a minute. If he doesn't start, I mean, the thing about the old Southern guy and how he ignores the role of the Communist Party, that gave me something to say. But this is all just a bunch of woke speak. This is all just a bunch of university gender studies woke speak about who's the most oppressed, and no one cares.
Economic issue. Like, if people of one identity are allowed to be in control of everything and use that control to subjugate another, how that might quickly become an economic problem for the people not in control. Like, for example, they would have worse job prospects, and at those jobs...
Wait a second. Is he being anti-Semitic? You just said one group controls all the money and has all the economic control? Oh my God, is he talking about the Jews? Thought Slime must be an anti-Semite. He just said one group controls all the economic stuff. That was a dog whistle, everybody. He's a neo-Nazi. He said one economic group controls the economy. Oh my God.
Have worse working conditions, harder time building cash liquidity or owning a home or not being in prison or enslaved or murdered. And even if they were murdered, like, would they even look for their bodies? Like, if you knew where their bodies were, would the government even go there to look for them? Like, if someone could say, like, hey, we have reasonable suspicion that there's some bodies, say, in a landfill would be one place they might be, then would the government even go look? Do you see how all of these things could be affected by whether or not you are considered a subhuman, inferior, second-class citizen? How that might actually have a pretty big financial impact on you. They do kind of acknowledge this by talking about how we have to work towards making sure that everybody has equal rights and equal opportunities and equal access to housing. And it's just like the cultural stuff that they think is pointless, right?
We shot a show, I don't know if you guys are ever gonna see it, we shot a pilot just this weekend with a mixed Republican and Democratic family, okay? I asked them about trans rights, should they have the same rights, same exact rights?
Because it's rigged, that's why.
Rights in housing, employment, etc. Every one of them, including hardcore Trump people, were like, yes, they should have the same exact rights.
Exactly.
When I asked about this topic, every one of them, except one, 6 out of 7, were like, no, not competing in sports.
Where do you think the denial of those economic rights comes from in the first place? Like, what do you think caused people to want to do that?
Well, I don't think it's that people want to do it. I think it's that we have a system where production is organized for profit, and the state reflects the interests of those who control the means of production, not the interests of those who sell their labor power. I don't think it's a conspiracy. Again, he's doing this thing where he thinks that it's not like there's a system or anything. It's not like there's profits and the irrationality of markets. In his view, it's all just a list of bad people, right? There's good people and there's bad people. And, and these bad people that deny people economic rights are also racist or something. I mean, it's like, again, he has this worldview it's just all just good people and bad people. Bad people need to be canceled, and you can be a good person by canceling bad people. No understanding of economics, no understanding of base and superstructure, all just good people versus bad people. And better subscribe to his channel.
Do you think maybe that, like, if you spend a lot of time demonizing a group of people and portraying them as inherently shitty, predatory monster goblins, that eventually that might lead you to want to take away some of those equal rights?
Is that what's going on here? I don't think that's what it is. I think there's a free market ideology that says the state doesn't have the right to impose taxation, that says that welfare is communism. I don't think it's about, demonizing.
And how maybe if you spend your time complaining that anyone attempting to change those cultural narratives is a hysterical baby person, you might be contributing to that?
But idiot activists, yes, I just called you an idiot. Activists go in there and go, no, I'm gonna fall right into that trap, and I'm gonna fight on the only losing ground we have so we can elect more Republicans so they can pass more anti-LGBT laws.
The people who argue that it is divisive to be united with one another come in two general varieties. Either they're right-wing grifters who want to third position themselves into leftist spaces to spread their dipshit ideas around.
Yeah, there's this vast conspiracy of people who actually believe in communism, who have gone to communist countries, who spent their lives in communist organizations, who want to stop World War III. And we're all secretly Nazis pretending to be communists in order to prevent people from talking about gender pronouns. Didn't you know about this, right? There's this vast secret conspiracy. It's me and Jimmy Dore and Peter Coffin and Max Blumenthal, and we're all part of this vast underground Nazi attempt to pretend to be communist. I've been doing this my whole life. You know, I mean, when I turned 18, I was around Maoist groups, and then I was in the Workers' World Party for 8 years. It was all a deep cover operation. I was getting my orders from David Duke the entire time. I video recorded the police beating up black teenagers because I was trying to build a cover story, because I'm really part of the secret white supremacist mafia pretending to be leftists in order to prevent the pronoun police from having total supremacy. This is, you know, you want to talk about a conspiracy theory. This makes QAnon look completely rational.
Or they're complete rubes. Useful dolts, easy marks for the aforementioned grifters.
Yes. And anyone who doesn't want to prioritize the transgender thing is either a secret Nazi or a useful idiot of the secret Nazis.
And it is pretty useless to speculate which one any given person is, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram, but I do have a...
Okay. Strawserists? There are no Strawserists in this world. Right? Strasser was a Nazi. Third positionists, that's a Nazi thing. LaRoucheites, there's like one LaRouche group. It's small and fringe. You know, it's the Schiller Institute. They have conferences and stuff. But it's like, that's what you think. That's who you think is behind everyone who doesn't agree with you. Seriously? I mean, there are probably like 2 Strasserites in all of America. There are probably 10 third positionists, and the LaRouche organization has maybe a couple hundred members. That's the vast conspiracy, right? Basically, the people in Haas's Discord server are the people that are single-handedly subverting the left. This takes the cake. You want to talk about a crazy delusion?
Rubric I like to use in these situations. A little test I use to determine if people are arguing in bad faith. When their position is criticized, do they A, defend their position, explaining their logic, or ignore the criticism? Or B, whine about how it's unfair that people are disagreeing with them at all, and they kick up a big stink about it. People saying they're wrong is actually them being silenced, and making them be silent about disagreeing with you is what free speech means.
Yeah, this is pretty ridiculous because what he does is he lies about people. He's got whole videos just lying about me, taking all kinds of things that I say that are completely defensible, taking them out of context. He tries to say I hate Muslims when I've gone to Iran like a bunch of times and made all kinds of films about in defense of the Iranian system. I mean, he goes out of his way to lie about people. He uses his big program to lie about them. Then he incites all of his fans to harass them. Then people try to get them banned from leftist spaces. They are afraid to go out on the street because they're threatened with violence. And you know, if you react this way, you clearly are guilty and a bad person, because I mean, this is utterly ridiculous, right? I mean, I'm sorry, if you make videos that have hundreds of thousands of views claiming falsely that people are neo-Nazis and they get mad about it.
But them disagreeing with you obviously shows that they don't tolerate disagreement. So they shouldn't be allowed to say that they don't agree, because that's not free speech. And it is a very handy rhetorical strategy, because it means you never have to defend your positions. When challenged, you can retreat to a grandstanding speech about the importance of open debate and civil dialogue. You can tut-tut and finger wag about how rude everyone else is, and then claim that they're the ones scolding you? Like, it feels to me like the worst time to accuse someone of scolding you would be right after you gave them an etiquette lesson and lectured them about how...
You know, it's weird how much of this video is actually about me. You know, I assumed this video would be about Anna Kasparian and stuff, but the land back thing, you know, and the Strasserites and LaRouche. I mean, he's been bringing up my friendship with the LaRouche people. I mean, this is weird. I mean, for a small channel with what I've got, like, 24,000 subscribers. I mean, I really occupy a lot of time in this whack job's head. It really is suspicious, really is interesting. I mean, all this time he's sitting there talking about Strasserites and LaRoucheites. There's not that many people like that. I mean, I'm not a LaRoucheite. I'm not a Strasserist, but he's got whole videos trying to accuse me of being one. And he's talking about land back. And like, this is weird. Like, I really occupy a lot of space in this nut job's head. I hope he doesn't like knock on my door someday. I wonder how many pictures of me he has in his house. This is weird.
Disagree civilly. It seems like a scoldy thing to do. To whine and cry and kick and stamp your feet about everybody won't let you disagree. Nobody these days will tolerate disagreements. But like, nah, you can disagree. By all means, believe whatever you want to believe. It's just that the thing you believe.
Yeah, it's just lying and claiming people are neo-Nazis so you can try to get them murdered and try to incite violence against them, or try to justify government repression of them, or try to convince people that they have to support hostility toward Russia or support FBI repression against the Uhuru movement. That's kind of what we object to. I don't think we object to anyone disagreeing with us. I think we object to people trying to get us killed and lying in order to do so.
Means you're a big doo-doo dum-dum. That's my belief. It's an open dialogue. Which brings me back to the left. I ask you now, of what use is being part of the left? My understanding was that the left represented a loose coalition of people whose ideas and values I agreed with, people who wanted and fought for the same things I want. If, in order to succeed, that group must allow people whose ideas and values are in direct contrast to the goals we want to pursue, the question must be asked, of what use is this thing? Why protect it? A lot of people would say it's because to get...
Well, it's made him loads of money. I mean, he's gotten 6 figures from his Patreon. I mean, it's been good for him. I mean, if there's anybody who owes a lot to the left, it's him. He panders to all the identity politics, all the trans obsession, all the cancel culture. I mean, for him to complain about the left, I mean, there's no one that the left has benefited more than this guy. I don't think he's ever been in an anarchist or a communist group. He's done zero activism in his life. But because Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum want this kind of socialism instead of the genuine thing, he's been elevated to be the voice of who gets threatened with violence and kicked out of leftist events and who gets promoted. So I just, I mean, for him to complain about the left, I mean, this guy owes everything he has to the so-called left, to the sad state of affairs in the so-called left.
To stop the far right, it's the only way to do it is we got to let everybody in so we can stop the far right. But I think a more effective strategy for fighting the far right, in my opinion, would be not letting them on your side. Like we got to drift to
that. Is that what people want? I mean, is
the right in order to protect ourselves from the right?
Is that what Anna Kasparian was saying when she said focus on economic issues? She was saying to try and like include neo-Nazis in the Democratic Party. I mean, this is incoherent gibberish.
Sometimes you say something and you think, oh man, am I strawmanning the position of the people that
Yes, you are.
I'm complaining about? And then
you do that all the fucking time. You have videos of me saying completely sensible things and you say that, and by that he means, and you claim all kinds of things. Like, I have risked my life to bring aid to people in Yemen. I have made whole documentary films about the Iranian government and the Iranian system defending it. And you took all kinds of things I said out of context to try and make it sound like I'm some kind of like Muslim hating Zionist or something. Like, you are a lying sack of shit. You lie about people. I have spent my whole life as an anti-racist, but because of your big platform, you have convinced all kinds of people who've never met me that I'm secretly in the Ku Klux Klan, you fucktard. Yes, you do straw man people. You do misrepresent people. And you do it on behalf of the rich and powerful. You character assassinate people because you're pro-war.
They just fucking tweet it, Then they just fucking tweet it. They just X it out to all of their followers on X. I just think that if we're trying to fight the far right, it would be helpful to not form consensus with them.
I don't know. I mean, if you're trying to fight the far right, maybe you shouldn't, declare anyone who disagrees with you as secretly being on their side. Maybe you should try to get like more people on your side to fight the far right instead of accusing everyone who doesn't go along with you of being secretly in the far right.
On account of they want to kill a bunch of people and take away a bunch of human rights. And that really isn't.
Who wants to kill these people? I mean, are you talking about literal neo-Nazis now, or are you talking about like Trump voters? Like, what are you talking about? Who wants to kill a bunch of people?
The type of thing I want to compromise about. Like, there's really nothing that could make that compromise.
Okay, so we really I'm curious here. Now, what is the difference between a Trump voter, between a Midwestern mom who is not sure she wants, her kids to get taught about gay sex in school, and somebody who wants to set up gas chambers and kill all the Jews? There's some differences there, are there not? Right? There's somebody who likes Donald Trump, thinks he's a good president. Somebody else who maybe they're quite liberal, but they have some concerns about the trans thing. And then there's like a literal Nazi. You do realize like all those three people are distinctly different people with distinctly different views. No. They're all the same. They're all the far right, and they're all going to kill everybody. Like there are neo-Nazis in this world. Absolutely. But every single Trump supporter, every single conservative, everyone who doesn't jump on the trans bandwagon and cancel their family and cut off all their relatives ain't one.
Worth it for me, And so, like, if that divides the left, I can live with that. Divide it up, baby. Cut that baby down the middle. I don't care who the left's true mother is. I don't care. Fucking balkanize the left. Who gives a shit? This isn't team sports. I don't care about my team winning. What I care about is the goals that I wish to pursue. And if we must abandon those goals in order for the left to win, then the left is a dead project, standing in the way of the things that I want. So, in conclusion, be wary of anyone who tells you that by expressing your opinions, you have silenced theirs. That by advocating...
No one says that. No one says that. When you lie about people and claim they're Nazis in order to try and destroy their lives, when you spread disinformation to justify the FBI cracking down on black revolutionaries, when you incite violence against people by falsely mislabeling them neo-Nazis in the hopes that someone will kill them or the government will lock them up, that is not them getting mad at you for disagreeing with them or trying to shut you down for speaking. There's a big difference between saying I disagree and here's my big platform and everyone who follows me, this person's a neo-Nazi and deserves to be beaten up and killed. Big difference there, you fucking liar.
For solidarity, you are sowing division, that by disagreeing with them, you have somehow not allowed for the possibility of disagreement.
It's not a matter of disagreeing.
That they know better than you the rate of progress that other people are willing to accept. That they represent normal people, the silent majority, the default human opinion, while you are aberrant and strange. Your ideas are off-putting and impossible to communicate.
Your ideas are off-putting. And this whole video has been a bunch of incoherent gibberish. I'm sure somebody somewhere thinks it's really like smart or something, right? But to most people, you sound like an incoherent lunatic.
Everyone else, the normal people out there, like me, are too stupid to understand those ideas.
It's not that they're stupid. I think that you are stupid. You are stupid in thinking that this is the kind of video that would speak to average people who are worried about World War III and the state of affairs in their country. I don't think ordinary people are stupid thought slime. Skippy the bear. I think that you are stupid. I think that you are very, very stupid. And in your stupidity, you're very useful to some very, very evil people.
No, because I go out and I talk to people sometimes. And you're stupid if you think that people will understand your smart ideas. Basically, anybody who tells
this video is not smart ideas, I'll tell you that much.
You that the appropriate way to make progress is indistinguishable from the lazy, thoughtless positions of the reactionaries they claim to be the only ones.
Yeah, that's what everyone's saying. You got to agree with white supremacists in order to, like, this is silly. Oh, he's almost done.
He's the good part about that. It's a good job. That's part of coalition building.
Oh shit! Did we just okay? All right, where are we going? Here we go.
Civil comment section.
All right, is he almost done here?
Not allowed for the possibility of disagreement. That they know better than you the rate of progress that other people are willing to accept. That they represent normal people, the silent majority, the default human opinion, while you are aberrant and strange. Your ideas are off-putting and impossible to communicate. Everyone else, the normal people out there, like me, are too stupid to understand those ideas. I know because I go out and I talk to people sometimes. And you're stupid if you think that people will understand your smart ideas. Basically, anybody who tells you that the appropriate way to make progress is indistinguishable from the lazy, thoughtless positions of the reactionaries they claim to be the only ones positioned to defeat. Thank you for watching my video. And also, just a guess, thank you for also having an extremely chill and...
Yeah, so that was a bunch of brain rot. But you know what? That's what our tech overlords want us to see, right? They've banned Scott Ritter a bunch of times. They've silenced all kinds of people. They froze Gray Zone's accounts. They shut down RT America. But that is what we should be watching. That is the Bill Gates, Silicon Valley, Mark Zuckerberg, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris approved form of leftism. So if that is what you want to be, you're totally okay. The Justice Department will never raid your home and point guns in your face. The FBI will never knock on your door. You will never have your social media accounts banned. If you want to think like that, right? If you want to think like that, it's a great time to be one of the people who thinks like that. As our country gets poorer, as living standards drop, as we move toward a low-wage police state, it's a great time to think like old Skippy the bear.